Hey readers, I'm Abby. I'm the senior editor of Read It Forward, and we are here for our October book club discussion. I'm here with Emma and Jess, and we are smack dab in the middle of the Penguin Random House offices, so you'll hear some chatter, some elevator dings, some people getting coffee, but we like that it feels like our authentic lives. And on that note, we asked you to ask us some questions. We want you to get to know us better, and you totally delivered. So Jess, read some of those questions from our readers, our Riff readers, our fans, maybe. Take it away.
So there were so many, but we're going to choose a few. One of my favorite questions that was asked was from Ryan. If you are Harry Potter fans to any extent, I'm a huge Harry Potter fan.
She's a huge.
I have a tattoo, actually. Which Hogwarts house are you in?
I caused some controversy on our Slack by immediately assigning houses.
But you were pretty accurate.
I was very accurate. Abby might disagree.
We are all Harry Potter fans, not, I think, to the extent that Jess is, which is that she lives and breathes Harry Potter. Show them your tattoo.
Oh, it says Lumos, which if you know Harry Potter, you know.
If you know, you know.
Yeah.
Also, Jess wrote an incredible piece for Read It Forward about throwing your own Harry Potter party.
Yeah.
It's delightful.
So, pictures are real.
That sounds like fun. Go check that out.
Yeah.
But
oh, sorry, I distracted.
What are our houses? Jess, why don't you go first as the biggest fan here?
Sure. So based on the Pottermore quiz, I am a Hufflepuff.
Oh wait, the Pottermore quiz is a scam, don't I?
So I was gonna say what I am based on the quiz, but also what I choose in my heart. I'm a Gryffindor in my heart because I tend to make choices that don't always make sense, but they feel right to me.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay, well, according to the Pottermore quiz, which I didn't know up until right this minute is considered a scam by someone very close to me.
Physically and emotionally.
I am a Gryffindor, which I was super, proud of. But Emma called me out in our group chat and said that I might be a Slytherin rising. And I don't think she's wrong about that. So I will accept that.
I didn't mean it in a pejorative way.
No, I am a badass, and I'll accept that. So that's me, Gryffindor with, my moon in Slytherin.
I'm a Ravenclaw. I don't think that surprises anyone.
Not debatable.
I'm such a know-it-all.
Yeah. But we love it. So thanks for asking that question.
Yes,
clearly you sparked a lot of
Also, Ryan, does that match up with your impression of us?
Yeah, let us know in the comments. Chantal, thank you for asking us a question. You're amazing. We love hearing from you. So you asked, out of all the books we've read this year as a book club, which one was your favorite and why?
Oh my God, this is so... Chantal, you're asking us to pick between our beloved children here. But I will go first. I will say Educated by Tara Westover. I was slow to the party on this one, and I hadn't yet read it. So that, when we picked it for book club, or actually when you guys picked it for book club, I read it for the first time, and oh my God, I still think about it at least once a week. It's such a visceral story, and the fact that it's a true memoir is just unbelievable. So I have read and loved all of the books this year for book club, but I was so glad to finally get to Educated. What about you?
Well, so we were going through the list because I wasn't officially in the book club for much of the year, but I've read many of the books.
Yeah.
But I'm going to cop out here and say that one of the books that I have not yet read is Gingerbread, and that's the one that I'm most excited for that's on my TBR pile, so I think I'm going to bump it to the top and start reading it.
Nice.
But I also loved Educated. I mean, it's a perfect book.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not going to step on any of the other ones in case they're just as thick, but yeah, there are plenty to choose from.
I have a very hard time choosing favorites for literally anything, so I'm going to say 3 books. Okay.
So it's a good thing I'm
So we covered the year.
So all of them. No, I loved Kindred by Octavia Butler.
Yes, you have not stopped talking about that
I
one.
won't shut up about it, even on Twitter. Like, I'm always talking about it. It's just such a good sci-fi novel. And it I don't know, I just couldn't put it down. So that's one of my top. That was February's pick.
So compelling.
So compelling. I also love City of Girls. I was a huge theater person growing up, so I think that just totally captured my spirit.
That was my first Liz Gilbert, too.
Me too,
Yeah.
actually.
I know, crazy,
You're
right?
sleeping on
I
Liz
know.
Gilbert over here.
And then I have to say, this month's pick, The Nickel Boys, I thought it was absolutely amazing. Also, my introduction to Colson Whitehead. So
I read it twice.
yeah,
Yes,
so you must have
did.
liked it.
Yeah.
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 Wow. Okay, that's an amazing question, Chantal. And I'm interested to know what your favorite book has been.
Yes.
So let us know.
And one more question.
Okay.
So this is from Carol Jones.
We love you, Carol.
We love you. Do you judge significant others, friends, and family on whether or not they're readers, and if they are readers, on their choice of read? So,
We were joking earlier. First of all, yes. The answer is yes.
It's literally in my Tinder bio.
Across the board, yes.
If you don't read, swipe left.
But we were joking about this John Waters quote that I can't repeat because this is a family affair.
show.
yeah.
But he says, like, if you go home with somebody
And they don't have books,
like,
don't
get
bang
out of
them.
there.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm a little lenient with it.
No.
Like, I'll try to inspire people to read.
Listen, when you get to an advanced age such as ourselves, like, you're over that.
Ruthless. I am no longer lenient at all. I am more lenient with my family.
Yeah.
And my friends I've given up on. So I love them anyway. They're not readers. So
Yeah. And what about like
amazing
what
we
they
became
read?
friends.
I'm less judgmental about that.
Same.
I'm still judgmental. I'm a very judgmental person.
Ravenclaw over here.
But, like, you know, whatever.
As long as you're
Reading's
reading a
reading.
book, I think we're good.
I'm not trying to be a genre snob.
No, exactly. So, yeah, I think. But if you're not reading at all, and recently I just said to someone, a date. They were like,
Humble brag.
yeah, it was terrible. They were like, I don't really read books necessarily. And I'm like, well, I feel like if you listen to NPR or you listen to podcasts or you read the newspaper, if you're a part of the cultural conversation in some way, I feel like that is, I'll take that second best under reading actual books. If you are informed,
Yeah.
about what's going on.
I would agree.
This one's not swipe left for her. Well, Carol, that's a great question. Thank you. Should we get to the actual
we
book
better
at hand?
jump in.
Yes.
Yeah.
Colson. Oh, sorry, I did my newscaster thing again.
No,
In today's report.
that's okay. So, as you know, we read The Nickel Boys by Colson Whitehead. And if you've been asleep for the last year, Colson Whitehead last year won the Pulitzer Prize and the National Book Award for his 2016 novel, The Underground Railroad. So if you haven't read that one yet, I highly recommend it.
Jess has not read that one yet.
And this was his next novel after The Underground Railroad. So people, meaning me, were clamoring for it. So The Nickel Boys tells the story, the harrowing story of two teenage boys, Elwood and Turner, who are trying to survive the absolute sort of horrors of this inhumane reform school, and the novel is set during Jim Crow era in Florida. So that's what you need to know about the novel. Let's dive right into it. What did we think about Elwood as our main character?
Well, I want to jump right into some spoilers.
Okay, so spoiler alert.
Yeah.
You heard it here.
Watcher beware. I found it so fascinating to have Elwood framed as the singular voice of this book in present day and during his teen years, and then at the end to find out that actually the present day voice is Turner, who has taken over Elwood's identity after they attempt escape and Elwood is shot and killed. I was actually rereading that part this morning before taping, and I was crying at my desk. But I think that's why I read it twice, because I hadn't given Turner and Turner's experience enough mental space as I was reading it the first time, and because I was so focused on Elwood. So when I went back the second time, I realized what a depth of information and emotion you get through and about Turner that I had not overlooked, but just, I guess, I felt like I'd kind of given it short shrift. But I love that it's actually a very balanced look at both of their intertwined experiences. And I thought it was super, super, super effective.
Yeah, I'd agree. I'm definitely going to read it a second time because, like you, I mean, you go through the whole novel thinking that it's just from Elwood's perspective. And I had to read the ending about 50 times because my mind was just I couldn't process what was happening because it was so sad, and it changed the whole novel for me, knowing that Turner's voice was also in there, and that I was listening to it the whole time without even knowing. But Elwood was a very strong protagonist. I fell in love with his determination and how intelligent he was, and how he always wanted to make change. And I was extremely devastated when I found out what his fate was.
I had a hunch, actually, that it was Turner. Yeah, because I was reading, the present day moments, and
he just seemed like such a different character.
He did, and I'm like, would Elwood run a moving company, or perhaps if he's gotten out, would he have risen to different things?
Right.
And Turner seemed like he had more of a comfort with the opposite sex than I imagined Elwood growing up and having. So a lot of speculation on my part, but I did have a hunch. I'm like, I wonder if this is not our boy Elwood.
It's very
but I
well
didn't
laid
see Turner taking his identity in the way that he does. So in a way, he does step into and redefine who Elwood is.
It's such a fine line to walk between a twist that people who read a ton can see coming and a twist that doesn't make sense because you haven't laid the groundwork.
Yeah.
And I thought this was very excellently done.
Yeah. So what did we think as the book opens, the present day voice, the former student, is finding out about or sort of reading the headlines of these bodies that have been discovered by this archaeological dig in, Florida students have found these bodies, and so it sort of brings everything back up to the what do you think, that website where all of the people write their experiences, what do you think the buzz was on there? Do you think the former students would have interest in going back or stay away?
Well, I think that Colson really lays it out very beautifully about the students who do find some sort of catharsis in returning as adults, as people who are in the free world. What do they call it? ACE? That's the highest level.
Yeah.
As people who have persevered and survived this as survivors. And then there are others who don't feel that they need to return to that physical space, or some who can't bear it.
Yeah.
I thought that was very interesting to see the wide variety of reactions to that trauma, which I think is very true to life.
Yeah, I agree with everything you said. I think it depends on the person and what they need to do in order to try to heal from that terrible experience.
And I also thought opening the novel in present day with that discovery and knowing that this is like what's getting the wheels turning, this is really what's finally, well, I don't want to say closing the story of Nickel, because I don't think it can ever be closed for the people who experienced it, but kind of bringing that cycle to its final end. I think that knowing that casts a different light on the years that Elwood and Turner are at Nickel, because they're working toward this place where they're trying to expose Nickel, they're trying to get Nickel shut down. And just as, because you think you're reading from Elwood's point of view, you know that he's safe, you also know that it doesn't work, because you've already been told when Nickel actually got shut down. So that was a really interesting juxtaposition to me, because the stakes are very much laid out at the beginning as having one result, and yet you're still hoping for a different result as you're reading.
And another note about the beginning of the novel, I thought that it was extremely powerful to open that way, because when they were digging up these bones, it was like a job to them, and they didn't see a story really, I feel like, behind. They would dig up a skull and be like, oh, that's interesting, like, we found something here.
The discovery was the
thing for them, and not the story, I guess, like, behind who those people actually were and what happened to them. And I don't know, so like then it gets you wondering, before the novel even starts, before the story even starts, like, who were these people? What happened to them? How did this happen? And why is it just now, like, coming to light?
Well, and I love that the story does spiderweb, and you do get all of the other students' stories. The boy who was the boxing champion, Griff, who was told to, throw the fight, and he didn't, and so he ends up in the field. And
he didn't because he actually forgot. He thought he was in the second round of fighting. It was actually the third, and he I cried so many times throughout this book, but he was like screaming at the end. He forgot, like, he realized he messed up, but it didn't matter. And that was just one instance of violence in the book.
Well, and the capricious nature of the punishment that they're dealt.
The White House is,
so we get the advantage of the human story, and so we understand who is in the field, and we only see a fraction, the people that Elwood saw sort of disappear behind the White House and never come back, And then to think, how many others were there is just really mind-boggling. So I read the book very quickly, but the part that I read the most slowly was when Elwood is still with his grandmother. His grandmother's very strict. She doesn't let him, listen to doo-wop and things like that. She doesn't let him hang out with the wrong people. She keeps him on the total straight and narrow. And I read that part so slowly because I didn't want to see him fail. I'm like, I don't understand how this young man can be sent to Nickel Academy. That didn't register for me, and I didn't want to get there. Like, I loved him being high achieving. I loved him being mentored by this teacher. I loved him even heading off to the college campus for classes. And to feel how wrong it goes so fast, I had to put the book down because I didn't want to deal with that as a reality.
Yeah.
Did anyone else have that feeling?
I totally agree. I was very confused before we figured out what happened that sent him to Nickel Academy as to how he could do something wrong, because he was such a good person. And Harriet, his grandma, was such a strong woman who cared for him so much. Elwood's parents actually left him when he was really young. They kind of just up and left, and Harriet took him in. And you see her love for him. She tries to build a great home for him despite her hardships, and she's been through a lot. And he has such a good head on his shoulders. He goes out to find a great job. He's always reading. He's very smart. And so, yeah, I couldn't see, how could this boy end up doing something criminal? I could not wrap my head around it.
Well, I think that's the whole point, because
he didn't.
First of all, he didn't.
Right.
Second of all, even the boys who did don't deserve the punishment that they're dealt.
Right.
And this is just one small part of one chapter when they're describing how different kids come to Nickel.
Mm-hmm.
And some of them are just wards of the state.
Yeah.
They haven't actually been sentenced to reform school. They literally have nowhere else to go, and the state can make money off of them at Nickel.
Mm-hmm.
So I understand why Elwood is our protagonist, and it makes you feel the absolutely unfair nature of his punishment. But I think that Colson Whitehead does a great job of reminding you of all the other types of people who are incarcerated here, and the fact that even if you had committed a serious crime, is this really what should be happening as punishment in a modern society?
Right. Mm-hmm. Right. I had to put the book down at the point where they got pulled over in the car. I was so excited for him to get to go take some college courses, because I just, was rooting for him the whole way.
Of course.
And when the cop light turned on and they were pulled, my heart stopped, because first of all, I kind of thought about present day and just the police brutality, and I was like, there are two black men in a car, and this is not going to end well.
Even if he hadn't been a car thief.
Yeah, exactly. My first thought was that he wasn't, and that this was just going to end badly for the both of them, which it did. But that stopped my heart, and I had to just close it for a second and put it to the side because it made me so upset. And there was also a huge difference in the way that white kids at Nickel Academy were treated versus the black kids. They were segregated on the campus grounds, and it was just, the treatment was very different for both of them. And that was also very hard to read. But
And I think it was interesting to see that it's laid out very explicitly, not just that the white southern campus is treated better, but why they're treated better.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just racism on the part of the administration, although obviously that plays a huge role, but it's also the visibility of the white students.
Right.
Waves of reform have come through Nickel. They say every decade or so there is an investigation. Someone does successfully make a complaint about the ill treatment there. And when so-called reform happened at the school, what they did was clean up the treatment of the white students because they knew they could still get away with treating the black students in that manner, and with selling off their supplies, not feeding them properly, not fixing up their quarters, not educating them in any way, because they knew that the black students didn't have the same rights.
I mean, that when Elwood begins to track, that we delivered this meat to these people, and we painted the gazebo for this neighbor, and he starts to track it. He has this hope, right, that he will incite change, and that if he documents everything carefully enough, someone will want to help or say, oh my gosh, this is incredibly terrible, what's happening? And he debates whether or not to give his findings to the state, right, when they come to inspect.
But I think his only concern is actually, will he get caught as it's happening? He truly believes if he can get this account into the hands of the government,
they will do something.
They will do something, and also he will be protected.
Yeah.
And of course we know that's the opposite of what actually happens. But right, he is hopeful and has faith in the goodness of humanity up until the very end. Right, that if he gives this laid out proof to the state, then they will have no choice but to say, oh my gosh, what an injustice. And we know Turner is been around the block, he's cynical, and he knows that change is not coming anytime soon.
But he delivers the letter anyway.
Yeah. I thought that was a really brave moment for him, and I thought that was, reading this thinking that Elwood was the adult, I thought that was how Turner was going to get in trouble and get taken out back, which actually means chained to this wall and until they die.
Industrial fan going, so you can't hear the screams. I mean, that was just bone chilling.
What were your thoughts when Elwood received his first punishment? I know that's a very hard thing to talk about, but I thought when he was talking about, first of all, he was there because he stood up for someone, right? He always had this great moral compass, even if he knew that something would happen to him, he didn't care. He kind of just always took a stand, even when he worked in the store. He always showed this brave side of him. And so he stood up for someone that was being beat up in the bathroom, and he got in trouble. The guy getting bullied got in trouble, and the bullies got in trouble. Everybody got in trouble. And so this was the first time that Elwood was taken out to what they called
the ice cream factory or the White House.
Yeah, and he was the last person to be punished, and I thought one of the most riveting things was he was counting how many lashes everyone got, and he was trying to make sense of it. He's like, okay, so if this guy got this many, then maybe I won't get as many, and it was just it made no sense. There was no system.
It was senseless.
And all of it is senseless. Obviously that shouldn't even be happening, period, but just, and then he wakes up in the hospital and hearing about the damage that he has to his body and how long he was in the hospital. I was just like, I don't know how to even describe my feelings.
And that his grandmother is turned away when she comes to visit and told that he's sick, and that they had to pick his pants out of his wounds with tweezers. I mean, the whole thing was just, I was so honestly relieved that we only had to go through it once. Because I'm not sure that I could have taken another time with Elwood at the White House. It was so hard to read.
Well, he does get beat again at the White House.
Yeah.
But we don't get the same level of detail.
Exactly.
And I think it's for exactly the reason that you just expressed. Like, Elwood has given up the second time.
Yeah.
And he doesn't tell his grandma what happened, and some part of me, I was like, please say something, but he doesn't, and obviously, I don't blame him. It's just a very difficult thing to read and to know that actually happened.
To what extent do you think Elwood was really inspired or motivated by listening to Martin Luther King Jr.'s speeches and his preaching of nonviolent resistance?
I think it changed the way he lived his life. I think that it, it's throughout the entire book. Like, it's when he's growing up, it's at Nickel Academy. He's just constantly reminding himself of what he has heard in these speeches, and he tries to live his life according to that, and which is why I was so upset when his life came to an end, because I was like, he was such a great person to have in this fight, and such a, like, he could have done so many amazing things in the face of, like, racism, and I don't know, I think it really was like a guiding light for him through it all, through the ups and downs, and
that part actually reminded me of this young adult book called Dear Martin, which is set during today in Black Lives Matter. And
that's Nick Stone.
Yeah,
it's Nick Stone, and it's a great book if you haven't read it yet. But he is, this young man named Justice is inspired by Dr. Martin Luther King, and actually writes to him in a journal as he's seeing the Black Lives Matter movement affect the people closest to him. So that is a read-alike if you are interested in one.
And should we do the reader question?
Yeah. Just take it away.
Okay, so we held a contest this month, which was really fun. Basically, we asked all of our Facebook group members to ask a question about the Nickel Boys, an original and thought-provoking question, and then we would pick the best one in our opinion. And the winner, whoever asked that great question, receives a copy of our next book club pick. So this will probably be something that happens again, so just keep an eye out for it. But we did pick a winner for this month.
Who is it?
So it's Chantel. So thank you so much for asking a great question. We're going to talk about it right now.
Right this second.
Right this minute. Okay. So she asked, do you think that some of the seemingly small decisions we make in our life are predestined to lead us along a certain path? For instance, in the Nickel Boys, the decision to hitchhike marked a critical turning point in Elwood's life that led him to becoming a Nickel Boy.
Wow.
My short answer is no.
Mm-hmm.
I think, to me, what I took away from this tiny decision charting the whole course of Elwood's life was the fact that there is no fate. Things happen, and sometimes they happen for no reason, and there's no way to predict them. Or, I mean, I guess to me it's an illustration of entropy in the world.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I don't think I don't think Elwood, by choosing to get in the car with that man and then therefore being picked up and sent to Nickel Academy, I don't think that was predestined at all for Elwood's life. I think it was a mistake that then changed the course of his life. And bad things happen to good people all the time. So I don't think it was predestined, but I do think it's such an example of how a split-second decision can really alter the course of one's life journey.
I think of it. Oh, sorry, Jess, you go.
Oh, you want me to? Okay. I would agree with both of you. I think that he wasn't predestined to experience this. I think it comes back to me for like privilege, power and privilege. Like if somebody else was in that car, maybe a white man, maybe someone with a lot of money, they probably wouldn't be in the same situation that Elwood was in. So I think that, and Turner actually says something in the book. So I thought it was Elwood, actually Turner. He likes watching races and marathons. And he said something that I read this morning. It was like, some people, it's like they just start off having less of a chance of winning than other people. And I think that this is just an example of that. I think Elwood had the odds stacked against him in a car as a black boy who was poor and a white cop coming and pulling him over. I think that was just it. And I don't think that was fate. I think it was something that's just showcasing what's wrong in the world.
And I think to that end, there is a sense of inevitability to what happens to him, just like you said, because we know that the deck is stacked against him.
Yeah, exactly. So,
Well, thank you, Chantel Blake, for your thoughtful question. And we hope to include more questions from you guys. So definitely next month, send us a few more, and you'll be entered to win our January book club pick. Is that out? Yeah. Anyway.
I think it's December.
Well, December. Yeah.
December.
Okay. What month are we in?
I don't know.
But this has been so great to chat with you guys about the Nickel Boys. It's an unbelievably powerful book. So if you haven't yet read it, definitely, whoops, you just heard a lot of spoilers. But we do recommend it. And it was really wonderful to get to discuss it with you guys.
Yeah, thank you so much. So as always, stay tuned. There's more to come. And if you're not a member of our Facebook group already, definitely join. That's where all of these great things happen. And I'll always be there chiming in to talk back to you.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. Keep reading. We'll see you soon.
Bye.